Christopher Yeye is an ordained minister, Reiki master, and owner of Kindred Spirit Herbal Garden. With a deep passion for herbs and nature, she combines her expertise in Reiki, energy healing, and herbalism to empower others. Through personalized meditation and breathwork sessions, she creates a supportive environment that fosters personal growth and wellness. Welcome, Kim. What are some of the things we can do to prepare for spring?
Thank you so much for having you. This is just such an important time. And as you can see the smoke rising, that's one of the things that we can prepare for spring. As we go through our homes and we declutter, let's start with journaling. We pick up this book and let's put springtime on it. This way we can track some of the things that we're going to do for spring. So we're going to go through, we're going to declutter our home, declutter our mind, declutter our space, our eating practices, and all of those different things so that we can prepare for spring. And what I mean by that is energy is stored all around us. It does not stop to exist. So sometimes when we're feeling the overwhelm with society and all of the madness that's going on around us, we have to be able to hone in to the principles of spring, rejuvenation, rebirth, planting seed, sowing, depositing, watering, and nurturing. So those are some of the things that we're going to do in our lives. We're going to go through our personal space. We're going to look around and see what served us. And now we can release it and thank it and let it go. Those are some of the things that I love about springtime. We go through our refrigerator. We start to remove some of those things because remember, with spring, we're planting seeds for the rest of the year. And for us, when we're looking at personal growth and development, we want to look at our diet. We want to look at our water intake. We want to look at our sleep patterns because all of those things affect us. So since we're going to have more light out, more sun out, earlier days, it allows us to go out in nature. And that's one of the things that I love the most. I love to be out at nature. I love to see the trees and hear them speak to me. And sometimes I'll even be the biggest person out there just going to hug the tree. I kick off my shoes and I plant my feet in the soil and I just hold onto that tree, or I just put my hands on it to receive that energy. But I also bring a blessing to that tree either that day or at a later date. And it can be a piece of candy. It can be a piece of bread. It can just be you sitting there and say thank you. So those are some of the things that we do to declutter and to release those things that no longer serve us. So now we're getting to that moment where we're preparing for spring. We're planting seeds. We're making plans to go and hit those amazing farmers markets. That's one of the things that I really love about preparing for spring because it allows me to be able to explore new things and different things that I may not see in the supermarket. And when I think about it and I think about the way that food is processed, I would rather really support the farmers and the people who are growing because we're doing the same thing as well. Growing mushrooms, I'm growing some lettuce right now, some peppers. So, we get the seeds together, we plan what we're going to pot, and then we look and research and find out what is the best way for us to be able to get a good harvest. And don't be discouraged if on some days that you just don't have the energy for it. Just allow yourself to connect back to who you are, what your intention is, and move forward from there. So one of the things, like I was saying, could be the decluttering. The other thing is to get outside in nature, to be able to hear the birds chirp. I love to see the squirrels run around and play outside, and to be able to see the cherry blossoms as they begin to grow and things like that. And remember, we can take some of the seeds that we have that are left over and give it to Mother Earth and plant those there, because then this way we're giving and receiving. And one of the other things I'd love to do in preparing for spring, because I know I'm going to find me some amazing rocks on my walk. And I don't have to be in the park to do so. I'll just walk down the street and it's like, oh, there's a nice rock. And one day I found one that was in the shape of a heart. It was not a perfect shape of a heart, but it still brought joy and love to me. So I love those types of things for springtime, getting with family, planning events, spending time out with the ocean to be able to get in that flow, all about springtime for me.
Hi, Kim. I have a question about organs and how they relate to springtime. Could you give me some background on that?
Sure. One of the biggest things that came up for me as soon as I started thinking about this is that we need to understand the importance of the liver. The liver is one of the organs that we want to pay attention to during springtime. Another organ is also the gallbladder. And then when we think about that, we think about the functions that they have and the different herbs that will support us in stimulating the liver, also with us being able to release the bile that we need to release from our body. So let's say, for instance, like with our gallbladder, one of the things that our gallbladder does is it releases it. It also helps in the digestion and absorption of fat. But then when we're looking at that, so we want to look at, okay, what are some of the herbs that we can use to support that? And then also, what are some of the vitamins that we can incorporate? So we would look at something like vitamin A, vitamin K, all of those types of vitamins are very good for that time to be able to help us to maintain balance during this time of the year. And then when we look at the liver, we want to look at some of the things that we can possibly incorporate into our diet, like some of the milk thistles, the dandelion, the arugula, the beets, citrus fruits. Those types of things are amazing for these two organs. And then when we dive down a little deeper, we can look at some of the practices like yoga, getting outside in nature, moving with, Mother Earth and getting in tune with that. And another one we look at is also meditation. So all of these things bring thoughts to me about springtime and then our organs and some of the ways that we can either support them and also send love to them. When we're waking up in the morning, we're rubbing ourselves, we're waking up our body. So we do a nice rub on every part of our body and maybe even a tap, because we want to be able to stimulate and also release all of the bile and all of the toxins that are passing through the liver, the gallbladder, that is really, really going to be able to support us with our balance. And I'm just really so excited about that, because then you look at the vegetables and the fruit, grapefruit, green beans, carrots, cabbage, all of those types of things, asparagus. So, one of the quick tips that I thought about recently that I heard from a friend of mine was to take okra, wash it off, cut off the ends, add 6 of them to a gallon of water, and then have that okra water to be able to flush out the intestines and be able to support the digestion process. Yes.
Wow, that is so. I really enjoy those tips. I was thinking back to when I was a child, and we didn't have vitamins back then, or at least we didn't afford them. And Mom would have us go out into the yard and dig up the dandelion greens as they were first coming up, and that would be one of the first things that we would have would be a grilled cheese sandwich with dandelion greens wilted on top of it. She had to bribe us to eat them, but that was part of the tonic, wasn't it?
Yes, and actually we really have to get back into that, because I can remember us picking berries and picking the greens also in dandelion and collard greens and kale. And now when you look at dandelion, this is going to be the time that you're going to see them in the stores. So when you go to get your produce, look, you're going to find that dandelion. And once you get it, I have even made a dandelion tincture with the fresh dandelion because I did not want it to go to waste. But we just have to remember our palates may not be used to that bitterness. So then add something to it. Throw in a little pineapple in there, or, make it up in a nice little soup, or, a salsa or something, because we have to get creative and be able to be outside in nature. Another thing that I think is so important for us, especially when springtime is rolling around, is to be able to get outside, get outside and get some of that vitamin D, and maybe even bounce on the ground every once in a while. We'll be so surprised how it actually brings us and it shocks our organs right into the flow that it needs to go in. And I'm telling you, springtime is just so important to me.
When you were talking about bouncing around, it reminded me of it reminded me of trying to get through the snowbanks over to the trees in winter. They're much easier to get to in the spring. And just going around to hug one of the trees, because, that's one of the best ways to get grounded and to have that electron flow happen for our bodies.
Let me tell you something. I am the queen of tree hugging. Everyone who knows me knows that, okay, even when I go out into nature, I'm not going to pick a branch from the tree because I feel like that's a violation for the tree. But when I see that one fell, I may pick up that branch and bring it home. I might see stones that look, that they're calling to me, and I make sure that I hold on to it. But I also thank Mother Earth for gifting me that beautiful branch that was able to fall, or that beautiful leaf that fell down for me, or even going outside my door and there's a cherry tree. And you should see it now that the news has gone around. You can see the kids, they're looking up there to see if the cherries are growing. And it's just so wonderful to see that, because the last time that I was able to see something like that was in the 70s. We did that on a regular basis, going to the park and picking things. So I think it's going to be so important for our well-being to get out in nature, enjoy the family. But one of the things that I really love about springtime, and it's almost like I'm telling it like it's a secret, are the farmers markets, because I get to meet people who are actually growing, and I get, new things. I also had an opportunity one year to have, I think it was a yellow watermelon. And I had never saw that before. So it was really interesting, just like what you were saying with the tomatoes, to be able to see different types of tomatoes and different types of beans and greens, and the plumpness of the pears and the peaches. Yeah, it's really, really nice, really, really nice. And I just love that about springtime.
You mentioned a stone, and I think we all need to be more childlike in discovering
Yes.
things, stones and whatever. And the soil gave me a nice surprise last year. And I was just restraping the soil, nothing planted yet, and digging around, and it uncovered a stone. And this little stone, which is less than an inch across, was a white stone. And it had, in its vein markings, in rust red, a heartbeat. And that's one of my favorite stones. So I immediately brought it home. And it's
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Part of my collection now.
Yes, yes. And I was walking one day, and I just happen to do this often because I'm looking ahead, but sometimes I just watch, what's happening, because I also have a cherry blossom tree that grows outside. And it is amazing when that just opens up for that period of time and then it just releases. So I think that's another thing that we may want to look at for springtime. It's time to go through our houses, go through our phones, go through our papers, our emails, our thought processes. And this is a time that we can start releasing some of that. And they talked about it. We used to call it spring cleaning, right? Mm-hmm. So just think about that. We have so many different areas of our life where we can definitely do our spring cleaning. And I always suggest one of the first places to start is at home. The room that you spend the most time in is going to be that place, because also with everyone experiencing a lot of trauma and stress during this time, that spring cleaning brings about that vitality and the renewal of not only the room, but energy. And we are affected by our surroundings. So sometimes when you can declutter, we also allow our brain to be able to exhale, because of what it's seeing there. You know, remembering that it's time to clean out the refrigerator. It's a time for us to adapt new ways of nurturing ourselves, of caring for ourselves, of loving ourselves, and also giving it back to our community. That's one of the things that I find is so important, that we need community. We need to know who we can go to, but also, like you spoke of, Elizabeth, I know for me, one of my biggest things was asking for help. So I no longer claim that. I used to have a problem with asking for help until today. And now I know the importance of that give and receive and allowing someone to support you through your journey. And it's springtime, and we should just throw out our arms and just embrace it and receiving. And one of the other things I'd love to do in preparing for spring, because I know I'm going to find me some amazing rocks on my walk. And I don't have to be in the park to do so. I'll just walk down the street and it's like, oh, there's a nice rock. And one day I found one that was in the shape of a heart. It was not a perfect shape of a heart, but it still brought joy and love to me. So I love those types of things for springtime, getting with family, planning events, you know, spending time out with the ocean, to be able to get in that flow, you know, all about springtime for me.
That's really incredible, Kim. I can see how excited you are about springtime. And it just shows that and transmits it to the rest of us. Now, I was wondering if there are any practices that you would recommend for us to do in the springtime.
Yes. I think one of the first things that we can do, and we don't even have to have a park next to us, just get outside, go for that 1 mile walk. If you can't make 1 mile, then just go for half a mile. And you'll be amazed at some of the things that will just pop up for you to see that you didn't even get a chance to notice, because sometimes we get in this rut of being so busy. And springtime allows us to be able to just sit back and relax. So some of those things would be taking a trip to the park, going to a beach if you have that in your area, you know, finding a place where you know that there's lots of stones, that there is lots of people that are around, because remember, we need community during this time as well. And this is a perfect time for us to meet people, meet new people, because you're not the only one who's looking to make changes in your life. There are other people that are on that same vibration, and we connect to each other when we get out and we mingle. And you never know when you're the only person that gave that person a smile that day. So a lot of times what I'll do is, if I make eye contact with you, I'm going to speak. And a lot of times that brings on an amazing conversation, a new way to meet people, things like that. Another one of the things that some people may even do is like hiking. Springtime is a wonderful time to hike, to see what type of herbs are growing in your area. You know, that's something else that comes up around springtime. We have little groups that get together and they're looking at the herbs that are available in the area where we live. So it's so important for us to connect to our environment and to the people around us. Another practice that I love to do is I like to bring my copper pyramid outside. So I'm going to be doing that real soon. And I'm just going to post stuff and let people know, like, listen, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the copper pyramid is at this location. Just come and sit under it for a minute, because we would be amazed as how, since we are antennas and we send out and then we receive energy, sitting under those types of devices allows us to be able to get energy within our body. So Tai Chi, meditation outside in spring, very good practices, because it allows you to be able to shut out some of the noise and be able to be in tune with nature.
Thank you, Kim. Those are so many incredible ideas, especially with the pyramid. How has that been received by just general passerbys?
Oh my goodness. One day I decided that I was just going to go outside and I was going to set up the pyramid because we have a cherry tree there. So I started noticing cherries coming and started sharing it. So now the children around, they come and get it. So I said, you know what, one day I'm just going to take the pyramid, put it outside and take pictures. And my intention was to take pictures to say, hey, this is the pyramid. We're offering this service. If you would like to come and experience, come on. And just by me setting it up, I got so much attention because most people never saw the copper pyramid. So I had very few people that came by. I was like, what is that? And can I touch it? Can I sit underneath it? And I was so happy that day because it allowed me to be able to experience it with them, to say, listen, okay, we found a place, we had the blanket laid out, the pyramid is up, and they were able to just sit underneath it. And I find it so funny because anytime I set it up in the house, my Shih Tzu thinks I'm setting it up for him. So he decides he wants to go under it. So the grandchildren are able to experience it. I have pictures with them underneath it, and it just looks so natural. And to be able to get the feedback from people when they talk about the surge of energy that they feel when they're under it, and the peace and the calm that comes from it. So I'm so grateful that I was gifted that copper pyramid by a very good friend of mine, and her name is Shakanda. So I'm so grateful. But it is, and it still is a great part of, my community. And I just want to open it up now for springtime and say, listen, whoever wants to come by, just come and sit under it for a little while. So I'm excited to see the kids outside this year because this way I'll let them see it as well with the parents, of course.
Well, that is very, very interesting and encouraging, and I'm sure it really fosters personal growth and wellness, probably well beyond what you can imagine.
Absolutely.
I have another question for you.
Sure.
What 3 tips would you like to give our audience based on your background?
Okay. One of the tips that I would give to the audience is to be true to who you are. Listen to what your body is saying to you. A lot of times we feel, sense, know something, and we just let it go and make up a story that maybe it's not true. Listen to your body. Our bodies are speaking to us. When we need hydration, our body lets us know. We can see the dryness in our skin. We can pinch our finger and see how long it takes for it to go back down. And normally, if you do that, if it goes down slow, you know that you definitely need more hydration in your body. And there are a lot of ways to do it. So that's why I love to play with herbs. So sometimes we'll put peppermint in a tea blend, and hibiscus is going to be a great seller for us this year. Hibiscus and alfalfa and spearmint and peppermint and all of those different tea blends along with the mushrooms. Oh my goodness. Get a kit or get out and look for some mushrooms, but also be aware that you cannot eat the mushrooms that are in your area unless you know about them. So I would definitely suggest take some time to plant seeds with the children during this time. We did some in a little Dixie cup just to see if they needed to be germinated or going right into the soil. And don't get disappointed if you try to start growing in your home and your plant dies. You write down in your journal, and that's why I talked about the journal before. We get a chance to journal what's going on in our lives, what's going on in our bodies, what's going on in our minds, and what's happening around us. And then you can have a separate journal for your gardening indoors, for your herbs that you're going to grow on the windowsill, and search out and do your research on those. And if you decide that you're going to do mushrooms, do the research. Get involved with a group of people who go out and they explore, the forest, or for us, it's South Mountain Reservation. So I can't wait to get into those environments this year. And just remember that we have to know that it's up to us to practice self-care. Know when it's time to say stop. Know when it's time to say to someone, I need to get back to you before I can make this commitment. That's a part of self-love, because this way you're not over committing to things. Because I know for me, as soon as you say you have an event, oh, I'll be there to help. And then I think about it later and I'm like, wow, wait a minute. Maybe I might have spoke too soon. So let one of the tips be that we can be okay with saying to someone, wow, that's a great idea, but let me get back to you and I'll let you know about that. And this way it can relieve some of that stress and get out and move your body. You know, you don't have to be outside to move your body. Get up in the morning and just let your body flow. Turn some music on and just feel the presence of spirit and God and all that is, and feel your presence and how you walk and you nurture yourself throughout that day. So I think it's so important for us to have that time, and also practicing. If you can't do 15 minutes of meditation, try 5. Some meditation can just be you washing the dishes, because all of your thoughts are right there in that moment. It doesn't have to be with you sitting and being still. But my last tip would be to practice days, moments, hours of silence where you can just be and allow that ripple effect to happen within us. It's almost like throwing a stone into the lake, and you throw the stone and you see the ripple just continue to vibrate all the way. And once we're able to quiet our mind, quiet our bodies, we can get some healing released then also. And, just continue to love on yourself. Love on yourself. Those would be my tips.
Thank you, Kim. Such wonderful tips. I lost track of how many there actually were. And I'm sure that if anyone in our audience just tries one of them, they're definitely going to enjoy spring more.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you for having me.